Okay, so Ben has started to record the meeting. If you are not speaking, then it'd be best if you muted your microphone, but we won't worry about it until we start hearing reverberation. So I will start the meeting. Feel free to type something in the chat box if you don't want to ask a question. And if you want to speak, one easy way is to click on the little person at the top, the little avatar with the person raising their hand, and it will be an easy visual cue for me to know that you want to say something. So it's a fairly short agenda, but it might end up taking an hour. It all depends on how quickly I go through everything. But primarily this is going to be about imaging and talking about everything that we've sort of talked about in the last meeting and in other venues regarding imaging. But I'll end by talking, I think I have a couple of miscellaneous slides, and then I'll end with a timeline through July of LepNet and SCAN action items. Most of them are really primarily related to imaging. So the very first thing on the agenda is that in putting all of this imaging protocol stuff together, it made me realize that we should just come out with another quick publication like the publication that just recently came out, and it's public now, by the way, so you can download the PDF from Zotac and share it with anybody that you want. But to come up with another short publication, something called Towards a Set of Standards. And in this title, I have Imaging Arthropod Specimens for Research. But I had a quick conversation with Larry Gall before this meeting, and we both decided that it really, we should probably limit it to Lepidoptera. Otherwise, we may never get it out the door. So it would be a short publication that we would publish in an online quick journal that would basically summarize everything that we've all agreed to with regard to the LepNet project. And Larry did not commit to being the first author. I think he will. In part, we have to decide how it progresses and if we really do have critical mass. But then, basically, it's just like any other publication. Then it's up to Larry to decide, who else to be co-authors on. But clearly, if people contribute to the writing of the publication, and if you're imaging at your institution, that you actually demonstrate that you're implementing the standards that we've agreed on, then authorship should be automatic. But if you are interested in being an author, please pop me an email. So, like I said, Larry and I decided that, at least initially, we will limit it to Lepidoptera. And in the discussion, though, we can talk about how it applies to probably all other arthropod groups, and the major departures or additions would simply be perspective. So, for example, I think the spider people have already decided that they want 5 different perspectives for capturing all of the features for spiders. Lepidoptera are probably going to be the easiest of all the arthropods. And so, but we can talk about that, I think, in the discussion. And most of the standards are not going to deal with perspective anyway. It's and for us, it's going to be dorsal and possibly ventral for some groups. And we both agreed that global would be better than USA. So if you know lepidopterists that want to be authors that would you think would be amenable to being authors on this publication, it would be great. It would be great to get somebody from Australia, Europe, other places around the world, so that when we publish this, that it wasn't just a consensus from the United States. It was a global consensus. So that's it for the publications. If there aren't any other questions, then I'm going to go through some of the slides that we showed in a previous meeting and talk a little bit more about them. Now, is Andre on the meeting? No, it doesn't look like Andre made it. I was able to talk to him on the phone earlier today, so I'll represent Andre in this. And so, what I foresee in this publication would be standards for making images nice for doing computer vision work, as well as just standard research work. So I've incorporated in this slideshow the things that Andre went over at the last meeting, and then I've added the 14 or 15 standards that we have tweaked that were in our original proposal. So I just want to go through these. So one is resolution, and the only thing that we did not cover, or Andre did not cover with resolution, is can we apply a quantifiable target metric. So everybody should be able to see the two slides here. This top one shows an unfavorable slide. So both of them, if you look at the full image of the LEP, they both look like they're comparable, and it's only when you really drill down to look at the edge of the wings that you see that this version is very pixelated version compared to this one, where you can actually see some of the individual hairs still coming out of the wings. And so a couple of questions here is, in terms of the publication, is this a good thing to talk about 4 different categories? Do we want more categories? If we have different categories, can we apply quantifiable target metrics like degree of pixelation or something like that? So that's for resolution, and the same thing for lighting. Can we, so Andre has provided 4 different categories of lighting, incompliant, and he's given one example here of just bad lighting where you really can't see maculations and color on the specimen, unfavorable, acceptable, and ideal. Now, one of the things that I want to do is hopefully Roy Larimer from Visionary Digital will agree to be an author, and he might be able to answer a lot of these questions and say, yeah, I can easily give you some metrics to associate with these different categories. But in the process of putting these together and putting the manuscript together, then it would be really important for people to be able to, at your own institutions, be able to say, yeah, I may not have hit a 3, but I'm at acceptable for lighting, and I know how we are set up at our institution in terms of knowing which category we've met or not. And that's why I think being able to apply a quantifiable metric as opposed to these categories of unfavorable, acceptable, etc., would be preferred. It is interesting because in this ideal image, he actually has a white background, and so Andre actually likes white backgrounds, and and I know absolutely nothing about imaging. All I know is that we really, from talking with Roy, the basic thing is that you need to make sure that you've got correct white balance. And you can't achieve that with a white background. And the nice thing with some of the white backgrounds is they're definitely more aesthetically pleasing. And you can put together galleries of images that look a lot nicer than having gray image backgrounds. But I think the key is to simply make sure that you've got a proper white balance, and anything from a white to a neutral gray background is adequate. And then he went over display, computer vision, and I forgot to actually put this in here. So what we've decided is that you can do one of two things. You can either, if you take this, that's right, you can't see my mouse. You can see this green thing. So here's an image. This is a legacy image, I think, from the McGuire Center, where it's great. They've got their labels in there, and they've got another label over here. So you've got all the information with the specimen, and you have a color chart, and you have a scale. But really what we need for computer vision is a nice picture just of the specimen and a scale bar. I'll later on make a pitch for having a catalog number put on the image, but that's up to the institution. I think catalog numbers in one of the corners that is a nice subtle catalog number is good, and it's good for your institution, because if your image ever gets separated from the record and somebody from, let's say, South Africa ends up with it, there's some hope that they can find out who the owner is if they have any questions about the specimen in the image. But if you take an image like this with all of these artifacts, which provide important information, if they're in there, then you do one of two things. You either take a second image of just the specimen in the scale bar, and that's obviously going to be a better image, so I view that as a good thing. But if you can't do that, then we can show you, Andre can show you how to set up auto cropping in Lightroom to auto crop all of your images. So where this red box is, that would be the auto cropped area. And so, for example, this is what McGuire Center is going to do. So they're not taking pictures just like this. They're better than this, but they're going to stick with taking one image and then auto cropping for computer vision purposes. And I'm going to just go through this next slide because it just shows a nice picture of a LEP with a scale bar. Andre made the point that orientation does matter for computer vision. So if you send a picture that is rotated 90 degrees, then somebody's going to have to rotate it back. Ideally, you submit a single image, not a composite, but a single image to scan and LEP snap that does not have to be rotated. So there are still going to be institutions that use color charts, and I still have this out there as an outstanding. Andre, you have. I'm sorry. So Andre corrected me. It's auto cropping in Photoshop, not Lightroom. And Andre has joined us. And so Andre, if you want to chime in, feel free to. So it is the use of color charts, which I still haven't met anybody that, at least for these digital images, has really made a very convincing case that these color charts are absolutely necessary. Still, people are going to put them in there, and they've said that. But for computer vision, I think they're probably the worst thing because the algorithms are going to be confused by the color charts, and as opposed to scale bars, which if you make a nice neutral scale bar, I can't get my mouse to move the arrow without moving the actual image. Okay. Darn it. Okay, I'm going to forget trying to use this stupid arrow. But here's a picture of a specimen where the scale bar should not really interrupt any kind of computer vision workflow. So basically everything that Andrew went over in the meeting last time, nobody has had a problem with at all, and we really hope that everybody can adopt these to some degree. And so to just be as clear as possible, what I really want to see as the basic elements of a research image is a nice clear picture of a LEP. And this skipper, this is from ASU, and if you zoomed in, this is just a thumbnail, you would see really, really, really nice resolution even when you zoomed way in, let's say on the head. So it's a nice image. It takes up at least 70% of the specimen takes up at least 70% of the actual image. There's a scale bar that's right next to the image. So if you did end up auto cropping, it would really be easy to separate the scale bar and the specimen from other artifacts that might be in the image. And then, like I said, I really encourage people to put a unique catalog number in the lower corner. And what you can't really see it here, but the additional information that Nico has put on this specimen from ASU is he's written out the word habitus, so it's a habitus photo of the specimen, and then dorsal. Anything following the catalog number is really up to the institution. So like at NAU, we use D for dorsal, and we'll do D1, D2 if we have more than one dorsal shot. In other words, we try to keep the file name as short as possible. But that alphanumeric you see in the corner is the file name of the image. So if you ever saw the image anywhere as a file, you would be able to recognize it and grab it. Following this is just something I've actually taken out of a post that I posted to the Ant Museum listserv, and it just goes over my view on using catalog numbers and the file names. If your file name for your images starts off with a catalog number, it's really easy for us to batch upload and create skeletal records in Symbiota. Even if you don't use Symbiota, it's a really easy way for us to link your images in our portal. And then part of this, what I call my diatribe, is to use a unique catalog number. And there are still some institutions, some of them really large, respectable institutions, that just have numbers as catalog numbers. And I encourage everybody to at least include your institution code as part of your catalog number. So no matter what iDigBio or GBIF does to your records or where they end up, if if somebody can find your catalog number and it has your institution code in there, they can potentially trace it back to your collection. And on that note, I would really make sure that the institution code and collection code that you use is the same one that you have registered for your institution on the repository, and I've given the URL for that repository, grbio.org, so that hopefully everything matches up. So somebody can go look on GRBIO website and immediately know that, for example, AMNH is the American Museum of Natural History. But in writing this, I realized if you go to the TADWIG site, which, I mean, TADWIG is the one that defines these terms like catalog number, and one of their examples is a simple number, and I just think that that's bad. If you apply a catalog number, I would truly try to make it as unique as possible so that it ends up being a functional GUID or GUID, a globally unique identifier. Okay, so this table 1, this is from the proposal, and it's been modified since then a little bit. And I just wanted to quickly go through here because I think that these elements plus the things that Andre has added that I've already gone over would make pretty much the bulk of this short communication publication that we would submit. So these are all of the things that there was consensus on before, during, and after submission of the proposal. Okay, thanks, Chuck, and I can email Jocelyn and copy you as well. Paul. Okay, whoever suggested it, Paul or Chuck. So first one, dorsal and ventral image of each specimen is required for some Lepidoptera, and we have a guide for knowing when to image the ventral surface of Lepidoptera wings. And it's one of those funny things, you know, everybody agreed that essentially all butterflies should be dorsal ventral, and then Richard Brown came up with the only other real decision one needs to make, and that is if there are any diagnostic characters that one sees on the ventral side of the wings, then image the ventral side of the wings. And that's much easier than coming up with this long, convoluted list of species that have distinguishing marks on their ventral surface. Second, specimen should fill out most of the image frame. And before, we did not have an actual number. I'm proposing that it should be at least 70% of the image. And, you know, but what would be good is to just get some feedback from people. Is 60% okay? Can we agree on a range? But before, when we just had specimen should fill most of the image frame, I just think that went by people, and we got images where it was 20% or less of the frame. It's just the only dorsal image is required for smaller micros. That should probably be integrated in with the first one. Number 4, dorsal and ventral views can be separated. And we did have in there or combined in a composite image. And I think Larry Gall was the only one that had composite images, and he said he's scrapping that. So we're really going to ask for separate views for each dorsal and ventral image. And then actually in terms of curating these, those are truly separate entities, and they're treated as separate records. Calibration for size is required for each image, And it could either be digital or it could be a physical scale bar. It could be either one. Like I said, calibration for cover is not required. And so at least I've gone beyond this and have decided that there's not a really good reason for putting a color chart in there. But clearly there are going to be people that disagree with that, and I think we can live with both views and still have a product that we can work with if you either employ taking a second image if you have a color chart, or auto cropping, and after you auto crop you end up with a good resolution image. Image background should be a neutral gray. We've talked about this before. Use indirect or diffuse lighting to reduce shadow effects, and maybe once again we can come up with a metric to determine how much shadow is acceptable. Images should be at least 4,000 to 6,000 pixels on the long dimension. So we started off with 6,000 pixels, and I think we found somebody that had a 4,000 pixel image that looked really good, and he said, I think that was Matthew, that said that was the best he could do. So right now the range is 4,000 to 6,000 pixels on the long dimension. Save as a TIFF format and create a JPEG PGN version for web. I added PGN because sorry, I'm reading Jason's email. Does the byte order matter for TIFF files? PC byte versus Mac byte. Andre, if you want to actually turn on your microphone, well, Andre is saying no. Okay, so apparently you don't need to turn on your microphone to answer Jason's question. Actually, I'm not sure why we used JPEGs now as opposed to PGN as the standard reduction size going from a TIFF format. And right now we don't have saving as a RAW format. So I'm not sure what the discussion was regarding why RAW format was not included in this, but I think that came from Larry Gall. I mean, obviously RAW formats are huge. Okay, both Andre and Jason are typing. I'll let them. Oh yeah, I do mean PNG. Sorry, mistype. So this is obviously something we need to resolve, like RAW versus TIFF or both, and why we initially just included TIFF but not RAW. That's something that we can decide on the side outside this meeting. We want a fully populated database record for each specimen image with a unique identifier. Okay, and Andre has made a case for why JPEG. The 13th one is sort of a legacy requirement that I didn't really realize until now, that I think we can merge that into one of the other standards that we've come up with. So number 14 is going to be truly unique to Lepidoptera, probably. Almost all other, maybe odonates would be the only other exception. Almost every other group you would want to do stacking. And then EXIF metadata includes unique identifier, institution, and the other basic data. So I think we we all need to be aware of EXIF data and using programs that eliminates EXIF data and making sure that our EXIF data is populated to the degree that we want it populated. Okay, other things that I wanted to bring up, and so this was mentioned last time about how you can buy gray cards, and you can buy industry standard gray cards. They just are expensive. I've made the PDF that Roy Larimer gave me where you can download a gray card and use it. And what I'd love to see is to have people just try this out and see whether the downloadable PDF works well for them as a gray card, because it would clearly be cheaper. Now, the one thing I do know, because I've tried it on 2 different computers, the gray that you get really changes from the printer really determines what that final gray looks like. But I guess I don't think that it's going to be that really that important as long as it works for correcting white balance. And if you don't have a scale bar, there's lots of scale bars that are out there that are downloadable. And maybe as part of putting this manuscript together, we identify a downloadable scale bar that people can print off and use as a standard that we adopt for LepNet if you don't have a scale bar. In one sense, it would be nice if all of our scale bars looked alike, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. This is just a screenshot I took from this blogger, Felix Sperling from University of Alberta, introduced the ECN listserv to Adrian. He's developing a blog for developing standards for mostly citizen scientists to consider all the added value that they would want to see on their images, so their images could be shared by researchers. And I just think it's a great example of how we really need. It's a good thing to reach out to citizen science efforts. And so in this case, he actually had a number of really neat things to talk about, EXIF data and other kinds of metadata to associate with images that I never knew about. And I think there's lots of citizen science people out there that can help us come up with standards and improve our standards and the data associated with our images. I do want to mention Audubon Core. Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is primarily related to people that use databases besides Symbiota. So we run into it. We run into it because Harvard now is, as part of their IPT, has their images set up to be totally Audubon Core compliant. Audubon Core is a standard created by Tadwig that deals with media. So Darwin Core deals with primarily data. Audubon Core primarily deals with multimedia resources, including images. And Ben is going to make Symbiota be able to ingest these Audubon Core standard images through IPTs. So if you have a database, I guess what I would encourage you is to follow Harvard's lead and have it properly implemented in there. There are others, like I believe Kansas still has not done that. University of Florida is going to do it, but my guess is that they're probably 6 months to a year away. So that's primarily it for imaging. And so if there are other things, so I guess there are 2 things out there. One is, do you want to be an author on this? Let me know if you really want to contribute to putting this together. And Second, are there things in this presentation that you think should be really included as part of a publication? So, for example, Larry suggested that we create a montage of everybody's stations to show just the variety of different stations that are used in LepNet. If there are other things that you think should be included, it would be great to hear about them. So that's it for images. I do want to talk about our website, and so darn, I am going to try to. Oh no, I can't. So sorry, I can't get this stupid arrow to work in Adobe. But on the left upper, I'm showing our current LepNet website, which is built on WordPress, and then our Scan project website, which is built on Drupal. So these are not the data portal websites. These are the portals where we put, or the websites where we put YouTube videos, all of the information, everything that's not really data, we're putting into these. Now, there's a couple of problems. One is, well, I like the theme that we picked from for WordPress in terms of functionality. It's the Frontier theme. Besides that, I think it's ugly. I really think it's ugly. I think there's much nicer WordPress themes out there. And so, and Ben has told me that it's fine to pick another theme. It will be relatively easy to migrate everything over to a new theme. And second is that I probably don't have the time to develop a separate scan WordPress site. And so what I'm proposing is to pick a new WordPress theme and to combine the Scan and LepNet project information into one theme. And so I'm not sure what it would look like, but I think we can do this and still make it easy to present LepNet specific information. But there's so many things that cross over between people that are working on Lepidoptera and Carabibeetles and spiders that it just seems silly to have two project websites. So if unless I get a lot of emails saying no, they really think LepNet should be, project website should be separate, then I would plan on combining them. And if you do have a WordPress theme that you think is really nice, and you can go to WordPress and browse through their hundreds of themes, the only thing I would say is we're likely to not use one that you have to pay for, because there are already so many good free themes available. And if you pick one, it's just a few things is is a response. In other words, Does it look good on a big computer screen and on a phone? Does it have a lot of the WordPress sites that I don't like? They're very aesthetically appealing, but they're not great for putting sort of chunks of information like the Frontier theme allows you to do. So I am going to end, I think, with a proposed timeline for various key things that will happen, or at least be initiated by July 1st. So number one on the action item is today. And so Ben said that he's going to integrate Solar into the data portal today. And so the two things that you should notice when you go to the portal today or tomorrow, whenever, is one, when you do a query, your query should come back much faster than they have in the past. And second, right now the limit on queries when you go to the map search is like 15,000. So Ben has not set an upper limit, but we're really talking about 100,000 or maybe 200,000 as the upper limit. And the only problem is that as you go up a number, your web browser may crash. You're not going to affect the server, but your own web browser could crash. And then later on, hopefully, Ben can do programming to allow people to do queries, unlimited queries, and they would simply just group occurrences together. So you wouldn't get individual occurrences. You would get, let's say, all of the occurrences in a county in Alabama or something like that, or on a grid. But anyway, so that will be implemented today, and the Scan LepNet portal is the first of the Symbiota portals to actually get this functionality. I'm really hoping to adopt at least the imaging standards I've talked about today by next Friday, and that may not happen, but this is really the time I would love to get some feedback. If you have real problems with any of the things that I've talked about, is to bring them up, and then by next Friday, whoever is the first author will move forward. So like I said, Larry is committed to being a core part of the team, and I told him that's great because now there's actual hope that we'll get the publication out the door. And myself and Andre are both committed to the manuscript as well. Okay, so by April 20th, there should be the official rollout of LepSnap, at least for iOS, for iPhones and Mac tablets. And then from April 20th to May 30th, hopefully there'll be a lot of beta testing. Everybody that has an iPhone or an iPad, you can actually test out LepSnap. He's been working feverishly on the code, on developing a huge library of specimens to form the back end of LepSnap. By April 30th, Ben says he will get Audubon core support implemented, and minimally that means we'll start seeing Harvard images. So right now, are there any new Harvard images? Rachel? Minimally, we will start digesting the huge inventory of older images that have been produced by Harvard, and hopefully we'll be ingesting new images from Harvard. But if you have an IPT that and you are going to integrate Audubon Core into it, we should be able to support that. By May 15th, I really do want to adopt a new WordPress theme, and unless there are objections, I will also create it to be a combined scan LepNet project site. By June 1st, I'm hoping that we have a draft of the imaging manuscript, and unless we identify a better venue than Rio, we'll submit it to Rio so we can get it accepted and published pretty quickly. June, I'm putting question marks here because I don't think Andre is committed to this, but for Android LepSnap beta testing,
yes,
I'm hoping that Andre's team has an Android version of LepSnap available by June 15th, and that that means all of us that have Android phones can start beta testing feverishly for a month to get that up and running, and then so then by the end of by the middle of July, then both the iOS and Android versions of LepSnap will be beta tested, and we can start rolling this out to the public.
Suggestions for IDs on both pinned and field images.
So Andre says, yep, he'll do his best to get the Android out. He said that's very possible. And the Android part of it is already 30% complete. So, and actually, so what I haven't talked about is also inserting the computer vision widget into the data portal. So you can talk about this if you want, Andre, but part of this is to actually put a little dialog box on our data portal. You can drag an image into the dialog box and have it run through a computer vision process as well. So it doesn't have to be images that you've taken from your smartphone, either in the museum, and he also is going to have a this. Andre, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is also going to have functionality for field images, right? So that if you're in the field and you want to take an image of a lep on a sheet at a nightlight or on a flower, you can do it. Okay, great. Yeah, and Rachel, you said you think your IPT already pushes DiDigBio automatically. I'm talking about bringing the images into scan. So right now we don't have the capability of ingesting your images. We're ingesting your data, and I actually haven't checked to see whether your images end up on DiDigBio, but I assume they do right now. And in other words, Joanna and the DiDigBio team is ahead of us. Okay, let's see, where was I? Okay, so by June 15th, I'm going to compile all of the information for the LepSnap annual report, and I'll turn that in July 1st. I think if there are any scan people on here, I believe there's 3 scan museums that still have to turn in their final report July 1st, and they're kind of on their own, but if I can help anybody out, I will. And so for the LepSnap annual report, I'm essentially taking almost everything from the portal. That comprises the annual report that I'll turn in, and I'm more than happy to take in information from collaborators and subcontractors to and subawards into my final report. I then share that final report with everybody, and then each collaborator has to turn in their own. Now, each collaborator can add their own stuff on that I didn't include, that individually, that talks about their individual deliverables that I didn't cover. But if you're a subaward, everything that you do, it needs to be in the report that I submit to NSF. And so I'll send out what I hope to be a complete draft of that report by June 15th, and that will give people 2 weeks to comment on it, and then I'll plan on submitting it on July 1st. I'm also hoping that by July 1st that all of the collections that have us, the scanned LepNet data portal, serve their data out to aggregators. Primarily right now it's iDigBio, to also serve your data to GBIF. And I sent an email out to everybody that had Darwin Core archives on the portal, and I encourage you to initiate that process of making sure you're registered on GBIF. And once you're registered, then it's going to be really easy for us to set up to start serving your data to GBIF automatically, just like we do with iDigBio. If you don't have a serve your data, I encourage you to also serve your data to GBIF if you're not. But I think at least all the ones I can think about that have their own IPTs, Harvard, Alaska, you're already serving your data to GBIF, so I think you're in good shape. And then last, I'm hoping that by July 1st that we complete our swallowtails. So right now we're well, I think Andre has all of the swallowtail images that anybody's provided him. If you have not imaged your swallowtails, it would really be great to do that now, to do it before July 1st, so we could add that to the training data. Also by July 1st, we'll run all of our ecological niche models to get ranges and suitable habitat that we can use as filters for LepSnap. And so swallowtails will be the first group that we're going to sell to people to say, hey, we can really help you with your swallowtail